Hello, and welcome to PCI Webinars. Today's webinar, Recognizing and Shaping Your Informal Leaders, with Dean Russell. Dean is a professional strategic coach. He helps organizations and businesses increase their effectiveness through leadership coaching, training, and public speaking engagements. He has a gift and passion for helping people and organizations quickly grasp their company's vision, gain operational traction, and work as a healthy, functional, and cohesive team. Dean is a national speaker and recognized expert specializing in business management, leadership improvement, and better employee performance. Coming to you now from North Carolina, it's Dean Russell.
Thank you, Ann. Thank all of you for showing up. We got a small group, which means that we have time for some good questions. So please, in the discussion portion, if you'd like to ask questions, it gives us an opportunity to have the time in an intimate group to go into detail. Thank you for allowing me to be with you today. And the story on this session was back when I was with Department of Defense. I got in charge of a really important project, and I was thinking, this is great for my career. And when I went into the project, I used all the project management tools. I did the charter. I had the duration down, the Gantt chart. I had the resource allocation. I had the org chart, who does what. And I picked really low maintenance people that got what we were trying to do. They wanted to be in the project. And they had the capacity to do this, mentally, physically, everything checked out. My mistake was not understanding and seriously the critical importance of informal leaders. That was something that I realized I had to recognize a lot faster if I was going to be successful leading any type of initiatives, any type of changes. And second thing is how to influence them, and then thirdly, how to disarm them if it gets down to a values conflict. And that's what this session today is my journey into that. What I found out through many years of postmortems and lessons learned, and trying to actually better myself to be a better person that people want to follow going into projects, but also understanding the dynamics that are pinning that project that wasn't in the project management book. Talked about communication, but the influence and the authority these people have, I truly think in any leadership class, in any college, across America, they should teach this session in the first session. This should be up front end loaded to say, guess what? This is going to be very influential as far as you being successful in your career. So my name is Dean Russell. I always used to say I have all the credentials my mom wanted me to have. My joke is I've spoken in front of 4 U.S. presidents. It was Mount Rushmore, but it counts. Anyway, it's my humor. I hope you like humor, and I hope you like to learn. So let's get started. So what we're going to try to get accomplished today is, first of all, understand exactly what an informal leader is, what they're not, and the power they have, and the different types of power they have. And finally, avoiding conflict with them, and sometimes there is no avoiding the conflict. I used to think that conflict was defined as two people arguing, but at least one of them has to care. Not with the informal leader. Sometimes they don't care. They just like to create conflict, and we'll discuss that. Some people like attention just for the sake of getting attention. We're going to talk about some cool techniques I've learned, the nominal group technique, the I twice technique, RACI charts, some stuff that I found out that actually helps to help them to better contribute, because sometimes they don't know. Sometimes the path hasn't been defined on how they can best contribute to the team. And definitely how not to irritate these people, how to look at their unwanted influence, recognize it first, and then how to actually divert it to where it should be going, disarming, and then what's the difference between long-term and short-term? Because sometimes, and I've seen, especially in the military, I've seen some people win the battle, the short-term battle, with the informal leader. It's called a Pyrrhic victory after King Pyrrhic. You win the battle, but you lose the war. Because they go covert, they go underground, they get passive-aggressive, they sabotage what you're trying to do. And that's why I'm saying this is one of those things we should all be taking this course and all going, yes, I have one of those people I'm working with, and yes, Sometimes there's a tension convention or a Jerry Springer moment when they get into the picture. So we'll talk about ways to deal with this. So let's define what is informal leader. It's got a few definitions, so I just want to kind of go through these. First definition, they take charge of a group and they're not anywhere on that org chart. They're not there. They can come in and all of a sudden the group just listens to everything they say. They take charge and it can happen in nanoseconds. Second thing is, simply put, because they don't have formal power, you don't recognize the impact and influence they have over the group. And thirdly, you might not see it. Like I said, it's not on their resume. You do a 360, they don't pop up. Your LinkedIn profile, they're right in plain sight, but you don't see it because in theory, they're not supposed to be there. In theory, you're the one running the show and all of a sudden this pops up and you're going, huh, did I just see what I thought I saw? And then sometimes it's too late. That's the problem, is you didn't see it coming. So hopefully at the end of this session today, you can be a little more insightful and see them. Because I'm telling you, if you've got 10 people, they're there. There might even be 2 of them, but they're there. And when they're there, it depends on what your relationship with them is. And so we're going to talk about that. So their perception, now it might not be a fact, but the opinion of the group or opinion of somebody in the group is that these people are better for their job security. They're doing something to take care of that group. And because of that, and the group perceives them as having that power, and they're going to be able to influence the group. Again, there's no official job description that says, hey, by the way, you're the informal leader. At least I've never seen it in my career on somebody's resume or LinkedIn profile. I'm the informal leader. But making them your enemy, and I'm going to throw this in the group. We've got a discussion group here. We're a small group. Just anybody. What would be a consequence of having an informal leader, a person with no authority on that org chart, being your enemy? Can somebody give me some feedback, please? And I know we've all ran into informal leaders that you're in this session probably says, I could probably teach this session because I've learned some things. Their influence is wider than you can imagine. Yeah, you only see the dominoes are falling. You just see the first domino. There's other impacts that are happening, and they diminish your power over the group. Thank you for the feedback. And also undermining your decisions. You say something, and this falls under insubordination. Failure to follow a reasonable command. You give what you consider, here's the objectives, here's the goal I'm trying to get accomplished, and next thing you know is nobody's buying in. There's a lot of things. And then another comment, yes, thank you. How others treat you and how they respect you. And respect's the name of the game. You have to earn respect. You don't get given respect because you got a title. You have to come in, you have to earn it, and people have to continue it. And trust is, there's some great books on trust and how powerful this is. My big 2 books I'd recommend for any of you, if you haven't read these, The Speed of Trust by Covey, and the second one is The 5 Dysfunctions by Patrick Lencioni. And Patrick Lencioni in his book talks about if you don't have trust, you're headed straight into conflict. And a lot of times it's phony conflict. And to get results takes a lot of energy and effort. So thank you. And also another comment, they create roadblocks for you. Yes. And what happens is you see that after a certain time period, you start seeing, because the trend will surface. They will come out. It's like a sniper. They're hitting you sometimes if they don't like you and they don't respect you. They're sniping you. And we're going to talk about, you can't let that happen, because if you ignore it, if you ignore those little sniping things, those little roadblocks, it's going to get worse. Once they find out they can do this, their power goes up and the group sees this. Or if you make excuses for it, it will get worse. And so those are the things you can't allow to happen. You have to put consequences in place. The attributes that define an informal leader, they can be actively for you, good. They can be actively against you, or they can be what's called passive aggressive. Or ruinous, there's another term called ruinous, I'm not pronouncing this correctly, ruinous empathy. And that means they don't care. They don't care if whatever you're doing goes goes to hell in a handbasket. They just show up, make 8, hit the gate, thank God it's Friday, and their attitude is contagious to the group. They can be sarcastic, and that sarcasm is part of that sniping. Those little comments, they just slide it into conversation. And body language, and we get to body language, there's 2 ways informal leaders, and all of you I know have seen this. So there's 2 ways that they do this. One is the head shake. They do the negative head shake. You're saying something, this is what we're going to be doing next, and they just start shaking their head no. And when they do that in front of the group, note to all of you right now, write this down. I see you've got something to say. Let's get it out. Open and honest. What's going on? You have to confront that body language, especially in a team meeting, when they start doing that negative head shake. What is it? Because if you don't, they will continue to snipe you. It's a sniping behavior. Another one that is not bad, it's the perception. And I've done this by mistake a few times. It's called the dropout. And I thought it was an informal leader person, had a lot of sway with the group, and they put their head down, or they cradled their head in their hands. And I thought they were being passive aggressive. And when I found out they were going through an adoption, she was tired, she was exhausted. And I asked a question, a Socratic method. I didn't go straight into the, what's wrong? I go, it seems like you've got something on your mind. What do you think about this last subject? So I tried to, broach it back to where we were at. And she just looked up and said, I'm exhausted. This is what's going on with my life. Can I leave the meeting? Yes. But I called it out because of the fact something was happening. It was obvious the group was being influenced. But it wasn't negative. It wasn't bad. I perceived it as bad. I was actually kind of irritated. But because I wanted to be assertive, not aggressive, not get sucked in, I just asked the question, saying what's going on, what's happening. And so sometimes when you see the dropout compared to the head shaker, it's legitimate. It's bona fide. Something's happening in their life. I call that a clarity break. Let's just get some clarity on what's happening here. And the agenda. Well, first of all, if you have a meeting without an agenda, then that's going to stray to begin with because there isn't an agenda. And agenda is why we're having this discussion. And second of all, what are the outcomes we're looking for in this? And here's the duration of time we're putting to this, and the item should be done in order of priority. Well, if you haven't done that, or if you haven't ran a good agenda, the informal leader is going to say, well, I think we need to talk about this. And then you don't have any opportunity to say, well, that's not part of the agenda because you don't have an agenda. So one of my big recommendations is if you're having a meeting, there's informal leaders in there, one of the best places to put Kevlar on yourself to protect yourself, always have a good, well thought out agenda. And what I mean by that, always do your agenda twice. First time, just download the topics. Why are we discussing this? What are the outcomes? Then go back and prioritize it in order. This is the important and urgent thing. So that way you keep the stuff that the group wants to discuss because it's the voice of the employee. What should we be talking about? Here's what I think is most important to least important. A lot of times they'll nullify the informal leader because the informal leader will break in and keep repeating himself. I think we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this. Or if you have an agenda and something called a parking lot, I can take that comment, write it down. We'll come back to it later. So what does an informal leader want? They want influence, not responsibility. That is a sweet gig if you can get it. Now think about that. I get to sway the group. I get to impact the group. But bottom line, I have no responsibility. And so I can make my comments, influence the group, but not have the responsibility that goes with this. And once you recognize what they truly want, which is the influence aspect, it gets easier. They're not trying to basically undermine all the responsibilities. They just want to be able to influence. So you're with this situation, And the first thing I'm going to ask is, have you actually sit with this person in private? Like if you know this is an informal leader, sometimes just get with them in a private situation, no people around, no drama shows, and say, here's what's happening right now. I've noticed you have a lot of influence on the group. How can we work together? That way you're kind of recognizing their informal leadership, but I'm saying the show has to go on. This is what I'm here to do, and I need your help. That's the best way I can recommend it. I've seen it go the other way, and it was a train wreck. The guy walked in and said, I understand a lot of people come to your desk. A lot of people come to you for decisions. You need to shut that down now. You refer them to me. Do you understand? Well, the informal leader understood, but it created a whole nightmare of consequences. My advice is try to say, let's have a private conversation. Let's talk about this. And there's a great book called Crucial Conversations you might want to look at that shows you how to engage in that, especially if there's a real degree of a severe problem involved. So the informal leader, whether you want them to or not, other people go to them for advice. And they, especially if it's a tough issue, why they think the informal leader takes care of them. It's a security thing. They've got a perception, this person's got my best interest in mind. So when you see people, you have a meeting, there's a second meeting, people congregate someplace, right there tells you you've got the informal leader. And then the third thing I figured out through the years is sometimes the informal leader does not want to be the informal leader. They don't want it. It's just that for multitudes of reasons. One, they've got the expertise. Number two, they've got the right last name, maybe a nepotistic situation. Number three, they're very attractive, an eros factor, and people just come to them. Number four, they've got a great voice. Number five, I could go down 32 different reasons how people get to be an informal leader. But what's important is that sometimes the informal leader doesn't want it. They're not your enemy. They don't want this influence. So I put this slide in here just to show you that sometimes leadership creates informal leaders. We go, you're the lead, but not the lead. Or again, the worst thing that can happen is favoritism. Somebody gets it, they're smarter than everybody else, and you start showing bias. You know, you start giving them special assignments, and you're unconscious of this because you think you're doing the right thing. Well, right there, you're making them the informal leader, and then by default. And then sometimes somebody in the employee population are going, somebody's got to take a stand. Somebody's got to stand up for what we think because you're not listening to the employees. An informal leader can emerge that way as a voice of the employees. So homework, I want you to do this for me. If you've got people, just make a list of people and just write down, who do you think are the informal leaders? Part one. And every time I do leadership classes, this is the first assignment. Who are they? The second thing is, more importantly, are they working for you or against you? And what I mean by that, when I say against you, just imagine you're standing there and somebody just stabbing you in the back. You feel that knife just going in, and it's called duplicitous behavior. These people are just basically stabbing you every chance they can, making people lose disrespect for you. So make those lists. Who's working for you and working against you, and then how do we work those lists? The problem with people around the informal leaders, they don't know who to listen to because you can't serve both people at the same time, especially if there's different agendas. Now, I'm going to ask a question to the group. And like I said, we're a small group, so please, if you don't mind, contribute. What happens if you have a formal leader who just hates the informal leader? What kind of things happens with the people around them? The people immediately surrounding them. What do you think, or what have you seen in real life when you get those two people just can't stand each other and people have to pick a direction? So what happens to people around that conflict? Thank you guys thank you everybody for contributing to this. I like an interactive session. So just listen to me up here pontificate. I like it. We We have a discussion because this is real life. These people around you, and we got to discuss what's the best way to deal and cope with this. So one person said it, and I agree with this. The conflict would divide the group. People will pick sides. Now you got factionism, or in the South they call it a confederacy. Yeah, different states all working. It's supposed to be for the same side, but they're all playing it their own way. And then, oh, yeah, the leader just backs off unless the informal leader do it. But sometimes they don't give them the information, so they're unsuccessful. This is so bad, it's bad. Yeah, go ahead, you got it. Go for it. By the way, I'm just going to withhold a certain amount of information, and then when you self-destruct, people lose respect for you. This is the theory that goes to their brain. People lose respect for you, and they'll come back to me. Oh, and this is really bad. Gossip, chatter. Our people escalate the conflict just for entertainment value. Let's make it worse. Let's see if we can get in on this action. You're right. The bottom line is people don't know who to listen to because they're conflicted. They go, hey, my job security happens here, but at the same time, my job security happens here. It's that bifurcation of loyalty. Who do I go to? And we all agree, I think everybody all agrees, that leads to further conflict. It's not going to lead to less conflict unless you deal with the situation. So the question is, what do they want? We know they want influence. We know that's kind of how it happens. And how do you identify them? This is kind of a recap. You watch where people go to after the meeting or the parking lot. Where do people congregate to? Where do they go to for the second opinion? Why are they important? They can make or break you. That's it. In a nutshell, they can make you or break you. It can be World War III, or it can be the best situation you've ever had because you got bench strength. You got somebody that's got your back, and we're all going the same direction with the same vision and with the same values, and you got the people aligned and focused on where we're going, and everybody agrees. That is heaven, my friends. That is serenity. That is where you can sit there and go to sleep at night, not have those 2 a.m. insomnia thoughts or how am I being backstabbed, because you go, we got agreement on this. I identified these people. I figured out what they want and what the group wants, and how can I make this situation where everybody wins. It's a win-win. And then the question is, right now, currently, how's your relationship with them? And one of the things I learned about when I used to teach coping with difficult people, it's never too late to salvage a relationship. And I used to not think that. I thought grudges went on forever. It's just somebody's got to make the first move. So if you're that person, you've had this bitter relationship, believe it or not, it can be salvaged. It just takes somebody going over and saying, hey, I recognize we haven't talked to each other in 20 years. I think it's time we go adult to adult. Not parent to child or child to child, but let's go adult to adult. How can we work this out? Going forward, what can we do to make this the best place we've ever worked? So that relationship is critical. And remember, long term. Not short term, long term, for the benefit of everybody. So there's a guy named John Maxwell. Love John Maxwell. And I think he does a great job of talking about when a new supervisor comes into an organization, this is what normally it looks like. Because people don't know you unless you got promoted from within. Meritocracy, which is good because people have already figured out what's going on. But if you're new and you're coming into a place, this is what the employees are looking at. They're looking at which direction do I go? And what you don't want to happen is people following the informal leader versus you, because that's starting off on the wrong foot to begin with. John Maxwell says you can't allow that to happen because there'll be communication issues and conflict issues, and productivity will suffer. Quality and quantity and time and cost, all those factors will be influenced by the people issues, not the process. Process can be working fantastic. It's the behavioral issues that are destroying those factors or creating deviance or variance. So the informal leader, as we now recognize, has the ability to command. They got the ability to influence, and people come to them because they've kind of figured out what's going on where you work at. The informal leader can perceive, or perceived by others, as having this ability to take care of you, to help you get to where things need to go, because they have this knowledge, personality, influence that the group perceives them as being critical to their success. There's a video I would recommend, just real quickly. How many of you have seen this video? If you just don't, yes or no. It's called The Dancing Guy. It's on YouTube, and it's actually a TED Talk. How many of you have seen this? No, no, no. Okay, Brian has included the link, or he's going to include the link with thank you. Magic, it happens. So if you watch this, it's 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 96 seconds. It is hilarious. But what it shows you is how informal leadership can take place and how the second person in your movement, called, your tribe, how the second person can actually make or break, can influence the group. So it's not about the leader, it's about the second person. So if you just want to be entertained, because it's highly entertaining, and if you like to laugh, like myself, I think you'll crack up. But the thing is, listen to the narrative behind the dancing guy. I think the person nails it. I think it's just a great, funny, humorous, educational sample of a person witnessing something and recognizing what was actually happening from an informal leader point of view. So just a fun assignment if you choose to do this. It's called The Dancing Guy. So one of the things about, and I've talked about this before, is that on the org chart, these people don't exist. And that's an issue because they're not a lead, they're not being compensated for any of that. But again, it's the authority structure that people go to. So if you think in terms of tribal chiefs and the power, how do these people get the power? How does that just happen? Well, and we all know this, knowledge is power. Not information. Information is not knowledge. Information is not knowledge. Knowledge is applied information. So if you have people with lots of experience, they've done it for a lot of years, and they come up and they go, by the way, this is the way we've done this. And if you ever get challenged, a note, just a quick note I'm going to slide in here. There's only 3 words that are going to help you with the expert knowledge, or know-it-all. We call it a know-it-all too. Research, research, research. So when you say, yes, I understand you've been here 20 years. However, my research indicates, the data indicates, this is the best way we should move forward. And then do your research. Be diligent. A lot of times that will nullify the expert power because you went straight to the data. Lead by example power. So this is, and I'll bet we've all been exposed to this, you get a supervisor who's clueless or unavailable. Either, and if it's both, it's a really bad situation. But the informal leader is stepping up. They're showing leadership by example. And the supervisor, like I said, is not clued in. So sometimes that's where they get it because they don't like what you're doing, it's unethical, whatever it is, they've made a conclusion. And the group respects them because they're walking the talk. Motivation power. Because sometimes people don't appreciate the 4 basics of motivation, which is recognition, security, belonging, growth and development. Those are the 4 basic things a supervisor should be giving their people. But let's just say you got a person that's very task-oriented and they're not really into that motivation thing of recognition. Well, I'll tell them, be glad you have a job. I go, okay, you might want to work on that. So motivation, which means 3 words, desire for change. And if you want to give people a desire to come to work, some people need recognition. One of the ways you can actually do this is go out there and ask your people on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your need of recognition? And you'll be surprised at the answers. The person you think that doesn't want it, I'm a 10. And the person you think really wants it says, no, really, I'm really good in my life, about a 3. And I always tell people, you're not psychic. And sometimes just asking people what they want. What's your need for security? Between 1 and 10. 10, you got 5 kids and you're driving a family van, and I see that. What's your need for security? And this person says, I'm pretty well set, 2 or 3. So you're not psychic, but sometimes just asking people what motivates them will do a way to nullify the informal leader, because the informal leader's probably figured it out and understands what buttons to push. Peer pressure. This has been in every study we've ever seen, from smoking to you name it, any kind of habit. Peer pressure can influence that because the group will go, groupthink, the group will go with the peer pressure. And there's a famous video, if you want to watch this to show you how powerful this is. It's Candid Camera. You can find it on YouTube. I forget, it's called the Ashburg Experiment, but you can look it up on YouTube, and it's called the Candid Camera Elevator Experiment. And this guy gets on the elevator and everybody just turns directions 90 degrees, and people turn 90 degrees with them. But it's based on a famous college experiment, how peer pressure can influence the group. And then charisma power. Some people just, they have it. It's some factor that the group just, it appeals to the group. Ethics. Now, this is something that normally we don't want to go into or talk about because we go, well, we're talking about the power struggles. No. So when the group is watching, they're not watching what you're saying. They're not listening to your talk. They're watching actions. And the informal leader can also be that person that's the ethics interpreter. They decide what's good, bad, moral, immoral. So that's one of the things to be aware of, that this can have a big factor as far as the group. So if there's any kind of ethics violations within your group, not just you, but your group itself, this could be the asset you're looking for by saying, ask this informal leader, as far as the code of conduct goes, how are we doing? You think about anything that shouldn't be happening? And that can be one of your greatest sources of information. If you have a great relationship, they can help you with this. Because sometimes you can't know it all. You're too busy. You're juggling too many things. Here's some of the other problems informal leaders bring to the table. They divide up who gets what. They're kind of like the gatekeeper, the keeper of the keys. Here's resources. Oh, you get this, you get that. What's an acceptable conversation at work? Especially Department of Labor says that equality between the sexes. An informal leader and your relationship, they can help you see what's happening that you're not seeing. You're too close to it. But sometimes asking from a different perspective, how are we doing for work assignments? Is there any perception of favoritism? Are we doing everything based on performance, which is what it should be? And then sometimes they actually can influence modes of dress, because a lot of companies don't have a dress code. We talked about this. When the informal leader and informal leader do not get along, they can create havoc in the group. Other issues that are problems real quickly is you can tell you got a problem if the informal leader just uses their gut to make decisions. They don't want to be confused by the facts, and they already have influence with the group. They won't admit their mistakes. They're perfect. They don't like criticism, and that is going to be a real issue if they're not vulnerable. According to Gallup, one of the best 7 attributes of a leader is being vulnerable. And Patrick Lencioni, Jim Collins, they all talk about it. A good leader, a good person is going to get respect from groups, is a person, they call it the window and the mirror. When something goes wrong, they look in the mirror, not at the window, and who can they blame for something. So one of the things to gain respect of your informal leaders is if you make a mistake, admit it. And if you get somebody that just makes quick decisions, they're a quick start, they like to accelerate things, to slow them down, again, give them a reason. It's called due diligence. We want to make sure. That's why we have checklists. Checklists are the best thing in the world. Who's Speedy Gonzalez? They're just kicking it, and you're going, hey, airplanes take off. There's a lot of accidents because they didn't follow the checklist. So, and there's a book called The Checklist Manifesto that's great about this particular point. And sometimes people like to, I call it hooked on phonics. They like to impress people with polysyllable words, and people go, I don't know what they're saying, but no, we need to get people who, anybody that's in any kind of influence, less is more. Get to the point. Keep it as simple as possible. And people who take shortcuts can be a problem. So here's a technique I'd like to talk about. It's called I twice. I twice is a technique you can use when you realize there's tension in the group and the informal leader is creating this tension and you don't have a clue what's going on. You rack your brain, you're going, what did I do? And there's nothing there. So it's called and it's worked with teenagers. If you got teenagers, please take note. Worked fine with my daughter Rachel one time, I'll tell you. So you see something wrong. And let's say, for example, you're having a meeting, this person just drops out. and we talked about that, but they drop out like 3 or 4 times. Normally they're gregarious, good contributor. So I twice as get the person after the meeting in private and say, I've noticed you're not contributing to the group. And this is a hit and run technique. It's not a lengthy technique. It's a kind of hit and run. I've noticed you kind of dropped out in the meeting. Have I done something to upset you? Have I done something to irritate you? So my daughter walks in the house, slams the door. Well, in my house, in the South, you just don't slam the door. That's just not acceptable behavior. And I didn't want to get sucked into getting mad because I know that makes it worse. So I use this technique. I've been teaching it. And I go, Rachel, I've noticed you slammed the door. Has Daddy done something to upset you? And she looks at her and she goes, no, it's his teacher at school about this issue. And she calmed down and we had a great conversation because I didn't overreact. You know, I wasn't insensitive. I wasn't oversensitive. So I twice, it's real easy. I've noticed, describe the behavior. Have I done something to create this? Well, when you do that, it's going to go down 1 of 3 ways. The first way is they go, no, everything's just hunky-dory, peachy keen, Jim Dandy. When they say that, write this down. So please, if you've got a pen, paper, take a note here. You say, I can't solve what I don't understand. I'm asking again. I've noticed this. Have I done something? Because I can't solve it, I don't understand. And you repeat yourself. And a lot of times the second time, if they say, no problem, then this might go into a PIP. This is going to escalate into verbal, written, because you can't allow that behavior to continue. But right now, I don't know what's going on. I'm just trying to probe. So the first reaction is denial. The second reaction is legitimate excuse. Hey, I've noticed you're dropping out. I've noticed you're not talking. What's going on? Have I done something to upset you? Or I noticed you're talking to the group over there and not including me. What's going on? Have I done something to upset you? And a person says, no, his daughter's getting married. In my past life, I was a marriage planner. And it's legitimate. And so now you feel relief because you know what's going on. It has nothing to do with you. It's a valid reason why things are happening. That's a good scenario. The third one, not so good. Good in an aspect we get things out in the open, but you go, hey, I've noticed you dropped out. Have I done something to irritate you? And they go, yeah, where do you want to start? You want to start with the favoritism? You want to start with this, the assignment? You want to start? So when they say that, you say, I can't solve what I don't understand. You're making claims. Now can we break those down? Claim one at a time. So decomposition, but they're making claims, but start off with, I can't solve what I don't understand. It's a great disarming technique. I've used it for years. It's kind of a hit and run, but a lot of times it happens when I'm confused. I don't know what's happening, and I take the hit up front. Did I do something? And it kind of gets things out in the open. Another powerful technique with informal leaders is called the role reversal. You do a decision, and the person just challenges you in front of the whole group and says, well, obviously you didn't think about this, this, and this, and this. And you go, yes, I did. Let me ask you a question. Given this information, what would you have done? Now, normally I try to take that offline. I've made it a practice to never get into it in front of a group. I will actually call a break. Let's take a clarity break for a few minutes. Can I see you in private? Because the group doesn't need to see all that happen. So I just say, what would you do with this information? And sometimes I'll have that meeting before the meeting because I know the informal leader is going to have an opinion. And I would say, getting ready to announce a decision. What would you do? I don't tell them my decision. I ask them, what would you do given this information? And once they process it and we kind of have some conversation, we go into the meeting unified because we've had a discussion. And I'm recognizing their influence on the group. I mean, I'm giving them credit. So it's kind of a win-win situation. Conflict is inevitable because of values, but combat's optional. So DGSI, don't get sucked in. Don't allow an informal leader to bait you and pull you in front of conflict in front of other people. No. Take it, roadhouse, let's take it outside. let's get somewhere we can have a discussion. Because you don't want to do credibility things, or anything that's going to make people lose respect for you. We call it They attack your credibility, your past history. They know what buttons to push. And we all got hot buttons. We all do. Mine's punctuality. I know. It's just one of those things. If you show up late at a meeting, I just get irritated. So people know that. But sometimes when people try to push your buttons, the four diffusers, and they teach all teachers this. So if you're in education, you've heard this. So the person's doing this attack on you. You start off by diffusing the situation and say, I understand. So what you're saying is this. So for example, if somebody said, Ann, you look good in cheap clothes. That's called an attack. And you say, well, probably so. But what does that have to do with this? Let's get to the agenda. Let's get to what we're trying to get accomplished. Or nevertheless, we're moving forward. I appreciate that. Or if you're truly messed up, I'm sorry. And be sincere and authentic when you say it. Another powerful technique, and if this is time to really pay attention, it's a good technique that goes like this. You got a group there, and I say, I've got a situation, and I want your input. And I get everybody there, and I say, I want you to take 2 minutes, sometimes 30 seconds, sometimes 1 minute, but never under 30 seconds. I go, I need your thoughts on this. I want everybody, no talking. I just want everybody to give me your best thinking on this. I've got a situation. Before I make a decision, I want to know what you think. And introverts especially appreciate that because they're tired of the extroverts hijacking the meeting. So I do this technique. Let's say 1 minute. People write stuff down. Extroverts go, why? And I go, look, I want your best idea, not all of your ideas. Because introverts sometimes think extroverts have something called verbal diarrhea. So I want them to focus that. And then what I do is I go around and go, one person at a time, one idea, one person at a time. What do you think? And I write it down. And the people see me writing this down. So here's the question. When do I call on the informal leader? No one turned the informal leader. Anybody, what do you think you would call on that person in this meeting? Thank you. Yes, we're all there. Last. And you know what I'll do? I'll tell the informal leader going into the meeting, look, I want to get the group's conversation. A lot of time it gets down to just me and you. I'm going to call on you last with your permission. And the informal leader goes, sure. And because I ask, recognizing their power, I call them last. Usually it works out great because if you call them first, right there, why have the meeting? Because you've already swayed the group. But if you do last, everybody will start looking between you and the informal leader. Who do I pick? Who do I pick? And the informal leader staying neutral because I talked to them before the meeting about this. I like to actually hear from the group. And so it's a good technique. It's called the nominal group technique. Make sure you write down all the ideas. And then the next slide is what you do after that. So you've collected all these ideas, including the informal leaders. And then what I do is I just go, look, one idea at a time, no discussion. No evaluation. Right now, I'm just listening. Give me all your ideas. And I start putting up a column saying, look, here's how I make decisions. In case you're curious, I ask myself the first question, money, no money. And then from there, if it costs no money, do something I can control or do not control. Now, why do I do this? I make myself vulnerable for attack because people see how little or how much I control. When you do this, you expose yourself. But what's good about this, the informal leader, is they see, and everybody sees, exactly what your powers are. And a lot of times that helps sway the group by going, we see what the situation is. This is the questions management is going to ask, money, no money. If something we can do, do it. If it's going to have to ask permission, which is what do not control means, we got to ask permission. We understand why you're asking permission. You don't have the horsepower to do this. And it's just a good way to get the group focused on this chart, this whiteboard, versus each other, versus the body language of the informal leader. So it's called a prioritization grid. What not to do? What not to do? DGSI. Don't get sucked in. Because, man, the consequences will kick in. And then you got World War III, and everybody's taking stands with each other. And informal leaders in critical thinking do something called false dilemma. There's only two choices, mine or that person. And in reality, that's not true. It's like slippery slope and all those other critical thinking arguments. If you ever get a chance, critical thinking is one of my favorite courses, just because it shows you how to really debate with people. But false dilemma is what they call the lazy person's thinking. And the informal leader will use it by presenting to the group, there's only 2 choices. That's it. No, there's always more options. That's the first thing you learn in critical thinking. There's always another option. So what not to do is try to bribe the informal leader, coerce them, using, I said, it's called the parent argument, do it my way or else. And the grapevine, you want to let people know that you are the grapevine. So in a grapevine, there's negative news and positive news. Well, 80% of the grapevine is usually negative news. The question is, how fast does negative news travel? About 50% faster than positive news. So if you say somebody got promoted, it kind of chugs through the grapevine. Somebody got terminated, bam, Mach 10. So what I want people to do is say, hey, let me be the grapevine. If you hear any rumors, you hear any gossip, come to me and let's vet this. So I'm letting the informal leader know, I know there's a grapevine, and I want to take responsibility for making sure we understand the facts of the situation. What does the data say, not just perceptions? Because sometimes an isolated instance of one is exactly that. It's just a one-time thing. There's no trend. And the halo effect is that we give an impression that this person has all the answers. It's like you put a halo above their head, where I want the group all have halos. I look at this person as a subject matter expert, but at the same time, if I have the time for it, I want to look at other people, especially brand new people coming in, because they can get rid of that halo effect fast. A brand new person coming in hasn't been brainwashed yet. And you go, what do you think the situation? I go, well, here's what I think based on my past job. And sometimes the group will go, So what the group says is, I'm observing, I'm analyzing, I'm trying to make sure I come to the right conclusion, just versus a sample of one, which could be the informal leader. I've already talked about this. They can be a huge impact to the value of the team, your value to the team. The good news is, if you get the informal leader working with you, you sit down with them and say, here's what I'm trying to get accomplished. Here's the most important things I've got to do in the next 90 days. So this quarter, I'm working on 3 things, and I need your help, and this is what the plan is. Week by week, how am I going to get this accomplished? So you keep it directed at work. At the same time, I think one of the techniques I like to use in my meetings is I start off with what's called professional and personal best. I'll spend 5 minutes of this once-a-week meeting where we work on what we're doing versus being in what we're doing. And I start off with personal, professional best. Hey, what's going on in your life? Because I think relationships are important. And sometimes we learn a little bit about the person. It's a good way to have a connection, to have rapport. So if you're listening to people, you're talking to people, and then you find out what each person's unique strength is, what they're really good at. It's called Delegate, Elevate. And if you look up, there's a website called EOS Worldwide. And they've got for free, you can download a tool called Delegate, Elevate. And it's kind of a breakdown of how to do that, how to get each person's unique strengths, where you can actually harvest what people do and actually more sync your organization and line it up with what people's gifts are. Finally, understand sometimes it's good to cede control because you can't do it all. You can't go on vacation. And having those informal leaders have your back, they're your champion when you're gone. They defend you. That can be a real good thing, especially if you're doing things like Six Sigma. They're trying to lean movements. They're trying to cut everybody and cut everything. And here's the informal leader that's got your back. And as far as commitment goes, people like people that actually walk the talk. The 110% principle about that you actually care about your group and you care about the initiatives and you care about the informal leader. So the odds are, if you're in this seminar right now, you're probably an informal leader who got promoted. You're probably doing so okay. That's what normally happens is you've got some kind of sway. You do some good decision making, and because of that, somebody sees your potential. So things that you can do, and this is an exercise I want to request for all of you, go back and get with your group and say, what are 3 things you're proud of working here? This is a Gallup exercise. I didn't invent this, but it's a Gallup thing. And you'd be surprised how many times groups can't do this. But say, I just want us, as we work here, to be proud of each other. And especially when you get that informal leader, tweaked in on this conversation because we want to be proud of this place. No matter what the job is, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you got pride where you're at and what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. So people see the end, the means of what we're trying to get to is the end. And so, like Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, she said, my mission is to get drunks off the road. My daughter was killed. I mean, everybody got it. She goes, that's what we're trying to do and take pride in what we're doing. So if you give your group that purpose, cause, and passion where they have pride, but just ask them, name 3 things that you're proud of about working here and use that and make sure I would publish it to where people can see that. Another thing too, just a quick tip, take new pictures. When you get new people on the team, always take a new picture. If you keep up the old picture, people don't feel like they belong. And one thing as an informal leader, we kind of use that old picture. So keep updating anytime somebody new comes in, take a new team picture, please. Good tip. GWC. GWC stands for, does a person get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? So when I'm looking at putting people in different positions, projects, initiatives, I just get back to those basic 3 questions. Do they actually get what we're trying to get accomplished here? Do they have the natural makeup to get this? Second thing, do they want it? Because if they don't want it, you just probably created a bad situation with an informal leader because they're going to fight you the whole way. And do they have the capacity to do this? Especially time. There's nothing that's going to make a bad person turn, and especially an informal leader, turn against you. They're already juggling too many things, and then you just, what's called a drive-by delegation. I see you in the hallway. Hey, do this. While you're over there doing that, do this. And they're already out of capacity. They're out. So when you're going to delegate to an informal leader, just ask yourself those 3 questions. Do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity, time to do it? And be careful about showing favoritism, because sometimes you do have a good informal leader, but you're unconscious of how much people are perceiving favoritism. So you got to make sure you nip that in the bud and ask the group. Just ask them, am I showing favoritism? And a lot of times you, an informal leader, can actually work it out towards what would be perceived not as doing that. Formal leader can be a great place for succession planning because the person GWCs, they get it. And you give them the opportunity to take courses, to take classes, go to seminars, because you see their potential. You offer it to the group. But with the informal leader, a lot of times, that's what they're looking for is growth and development. And they just need that avenue. And you go, you know what? I think you'd be great at this. So your job, I always tell people, I want you to go as far as you can go. How can I help you on that journey? And mentoring, if you've got a mentoring plan or understand mentoring, it's a great tool and technique to get people different than coaching, a little bit different. And finally, my last slide I'll talk about is moving people up, because sometimes I got an informal leader and they're doing the right things, but it's time to move them up. And they go, I'm going to actually put you in charge of this formally. And they go, why? Because remember, they don't want responsibility. They want influence, but not responsibility. So you go, look, people come to you. You're making the decisions. You're good at this. Let's try this for a month. Just a month. I want you to take charge of this. And here's the good news. If anything goes wrong, I got your back. I got your back. For 1 month. Let's try this for 1 month. And a lot of times when you give them that assurance that you got their back, things go well. The informal leader says thank you, because they're getting tired of coming to you. They're getting tired of playing the whole game anyway. So that goes to that delegate, elevate. But give them the power and tell the group, this person's now in charge of this. Don't come to me. Don't knock on my door. They got this. We recognize that. And it's a win-win for everybody, because you don't get redundancy in communication. And with that, got just a short time left. Are there any questions? We covered a lot of material, but anybody got any burning questions?
I don't see anything burning there. Dean?
Well, okay. I did a very good job, which I hope I did. I hope today some tips. And remember, all it takes is one tip to make a difference in your life. That's something I learned from Anthony Robbins, and I agree with it. Sometimes you walk away from today and you go, you know, that one thing about that disarming that I twice, I've noticed, have I done something that upset you? Can make the difference of years of resentment and lost experiences that you could have had some good experiences. Remember, it's never too late to salvage a relationship. And I think that is about our time, correct?
Yep, except do you see that question there in the discussion you're in?
Yeah. So what are the motivations you mentioned earlier in the presentation? So thank you. So one is recognition. And so people, introverts sometimes will say, I'll quit if you give me recognition. So you got to kind of tailor the recognition to what the person wants. Don't just give it to them. And money is not the big motivator. There's a guy named Daniel Pink. He talks about this. Money is not the big motivator you think it is because it's short term. It's called cognitive dissonance or something. There's a term for this. How come money doesn't last for a long time period? So when you give recognition, the most powerful form of recognition is a handwritten note. And it's very specific. It's sincere, and it's timely. It's something they've done recently. So recognition is powerful. But realize different people want it differently. I had this guy that loved Sam's Club Diet Cokes. He did something spectacular. I went and got him a case of Sam's Club Diet Cokes. And in front of the group, I gave this handwritten note with a case of Sam's Diet Coke. He loved it. Other person liked to go to movies. So I just got Fandango and got 2 tickets. So I always try to tailor make the recognition. The second thing, it's going to be security. So that's where the grapevine kicks in. Be the grapevine. The only people hear rumors, changes, we're doing stuff, or somebody walks past the memo board, the bulletin board, and they go, well, you know what that means? No. Clarify what that means, because sometimes people really distort what that means, and your job is to say, hey, there's a memo out. I would like to just clarify what that means. Here's what's really going on. So you become the grapevine so people feel more secure. Realize anytime there's changes, people get that resistance to change. So you got to make it easy for them to be able to come to you and ask questions, make the group feel secure. The third one is the one that most people don't believe, belonging. The reason people go to meetings is not to get anything done. They actually go to belong. It's a fellowship. It's rapport. No matter if you're introvert or extrovert, we all have that need to belong, the tribe. So make sure, that's why I said make the new picture. Remember, don't leave the old picture up. Update the picture. Make that person feel like they belong. When they first come to work the first day, have somebody sit with them at lunch. Man, that's going to be, have the informal leader sit with them at lunch and say, welcome to the club, welcome to the tribe. And right there, it's a good start because they feel it. They feel like they're part of something. And the last one is growth and development. And and one more I'll go into the ultimate last one, but growth and development. See, the problem is there's no more ladder of success. It's a lattice. So that means you might go vertical a while, and you can actually make more money going horizontal than vertical. Cross-training is a good thing. So, and you can actually get compensated for that. So sometimes when people say, I want to go up, and nobody dies, nobody retires, there's no place to go up to. If you give them an opportunity to go sideways, give them some type of internship or apprenticeship or some mentoring, job shadowing, some place where they can pick up something different, keep themselves fresh. And then the very, very last one is listening. People want to be listened to, and we're poor listeners. My favorite thing I said, how many people did Noah have on the ark? And everybody goes 2, and I go, Noah didn't have anybody. Moses, I'm sorry, how many people did Moses have on the ark? And people say 2, and I go, no, it's Noah. So sometimes you find out people just really aren't listening, and they appreciate if you take the time, not look at your cell phone, not look at your computer screen, sit there and take 2 minutes and just look at the person, actually listen and ask questions, and respect goes up for you because we're so busy, nobody actually listens anymore. So try that. Get rid of all the visual, auditory distractions. Just make eye contact with the person, smile and say, what's up? And then listen. Don't interrupt. Don't step on the conversation. So I hope that answers the question.
Yep, I think it probably does. Any other questions for Dean? Or comments? I don't see anything else coming in, and we are out of time. So, Dean, thank you once again for a great presentation. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. We received some thank yous coming in, which we always like to see. We hope you had a great time, and we'll see you again soon at another PCI webinar. Have a great afternoon, everybody.